Food security remains a big issue on the continent, where the Horn of Africa is being confronted with one of its most severe food security crises till date. According to statistics, about 37 million people face acute hunger in the region, which includes Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, and Uganda.
In Somalia alone, 40% of the population is facing food insecurity, amounting to about 6.7 million people. But food security is not just an issue in the Horn. Other parts of the continent are also suffering.
In South Africa, for example, over 23% of the households experience hunger, and about 70% of households in the country rely on government grants. Overall, global figures show that Africa is short of 30 million metric tons of food this year. The shortage, which is partly the result of disrupted food supplies arising from the Russia-Ukraine war, comes as the continent marked Africa Day of Food and Nutrition Security. Now, joining us now to discuss more about food security is a researcher from the Risk and Vulnerability Science Center, Dr. Saul Ngarava. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Saul. Good morning to you.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. Hunger has been a challenge in South Africa even before COVID-19. What would you say, are the primary challenges associated with food insecurity in South Africa?
I would like to say South Africa, generally, at a macro level, is food secure actually at a macro level. But when you go down to the micro level, it seems that there are pockets of food insecurity. You find that mainly it's because of the agriculture or food production system within South Africa itself. You find that the macro is mainly supplied by the commercial type of agricultural production. When it comes to a household, food production or food security itself, at the micro level, there seems to be a bit of a problem. As you alluded to before, they seem to also be sort of like a reliance on the social grant system as well, negating the production side, especially at the household level.
Let's talk, Dr. Saul, about the rise of food prices since COVID-19 pandemic. And how would you say that this has contributed to food insecurity?
Immensely. It is actually, the Ukraine war is a crisis after where South Africa was trying to rebuild and recover from the effects of COVID-19. You find that the other COVID-19, the lockdown condition, meant that you could not access food. There was limited access to food, but that there was even limited in terms of production, even the agriculture extension advisory services, there was limited access to those kind of people to advise in terms of agricultural production. In terms of the supply chains, they were also disrupted through COVID and now even through other climate change calamities. And you find that even through the Russia-Ukraine war, South Africa exports 7% of its citrus production to Russia. So those are kind of the dynamics that have affected the supply side as well as the demand side in terms of food production and in terms of food consumption, affecting food security within South Africa.
No, let's take it beyond South Africa now. It's not just a South African problem. Across the continent, where would you say the challenge really lies? Is it a policy issue? Are we still talking about security as one of the challenges? Do you think the government is doing enough for their citizens? There's a lot of statistics that show that we should be able to be completely self-sufficient with regards to food. Now, South Africa alone has 96 million hectares of land for agriculture. Nigeria has about 69 million hectares of land. So why do we still have these challenges?
Well, I think I would like to view it from two perspectives, right? There's agricultural production for economic growth and income generation, where you concentrate on your cash crops, the likes, to bring in income. And then there's production for food security purposes. I think nationally, governments are more oriented, though on paper they'll say food security, but then they're more oriented on cash cash crop production, employment creation. They're also overburdened with employment creation. So they're more designed for cash crop production, for employment creation, for job security issues, and then they sort of like neglect the household level food security situation. So I think if we move, even like if you see the COVID-19 pandemic, what it brought out was that complex food systems are not the way to go. If you go micro level, micromanage food systems, when there's a crisis, that food system is able to sustain that group of people within that community. So there's a need to shift from that micro level thinking and go to micro level where there's accumulation from below.
Dr. Saul, I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we are faring as regards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now, we know that these goals are to enhance life and the quality of living for its member states, and the goal is slated for 2030. Now, we have Goal 1, which is no poverty, Goal 2, zero hunger. Unfortunately, situations like climate change, gender, constant rising inequalities, the Ukraine and Russia war, and several other factors have set us back. Do you foresee maybe the possibility of us reaching this goal in 2030? And what solutions do you suggest we can be employed to tackle hunger and food insecurity?
On a personal view, I would like to think that we are in a firefighting stage because of these calamities that follow, the recent calamities, COVID-19, even climate change itself, extreme climate events, droughts, sometimes flooding. We're firefighting, and then to set those objectives for 2030, I would say it's a bit doubtful that we will reach those goals in terms of the SDG goals for 2030. I would like to think that the causes, some are unknown. Even now, the effect of COVID, we really don't know what was the extent of the effect of the COVID-19. Sometimes even the Russia-Ukraine war, no one really knows the extent of how it affects. It will affect the economies, how it will affect food security, food access, availability. So in terms of these SDGs, they still hope, but the time is not on our side, and I would think that we might not reach our intended targets as a continent.
Well, sadly, it just shows the amount of work that needs to be done. Dr. Saul, thank you very much for your time this morning, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again.
All right, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and just to also quickly mention, the Africa Agriculture Status Report also did detail some of these challenges that the continent is currently facing with regards, the challenges with agriculture and food security. The challenges with climate change, with insecurity, with government policies that are also not helping, with increasing population growth, and how that also will continue to affect agriculture expansion and growth across the continent. And earlier I mentioned, that South Africa, Nigeria, and I believe Sudan have some of the largest hectares of land that are available for agriculture, and so it's almost inexcusable. African governments need to continue to understand the importance of these things. And when I say agriculture, I'm not just talking about land, I'm a passionate agriculture now. The waterways across the continent are also of very high importance and should also be taken into serious consideration.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Absolutely.
1 in 10 billion people around the world suffering from hunger. There's so much work that needs to be done, but we will keep talking about it and ensuring that we keep our government accountable.